Hey guys, welcome to my first drive video on Audi's TTRS Iconic Edition. Think of this as a 25th anniversary because the TT was launched way back in 1998 and I remember that very clearly, and it's great to see that over those 25 years it's still unmistakably a TT. Just like with Audi's latest second generation R8, it looks very similar to the original one, and I love the way that Audi carry and continue that heritage and styling because it looks super modern and futuristic back in '98 and it still looks really good today, albeit in this rather aggressive body kit Iconic Edition. They're only producing 100 units of this Iconic Edition, and they will be for sale in various parts of Europe. The UK are getting just 11 units, although I don't think they'll sell many more than those 11 when I tell you it's worth £87,650, so basically 90 grand for a TT. I mean, that's a lot of money. I know car prices are kind of crazy at the moment, but they're asking a lot of money for this, so it's got to be a very, very good car. Let's have a look at what the Iconic Edition brings to the already brilliant and underrated, in my opinion, TTRS. Under the bonnet, we have Audi's iconic 2.5 litre 5-cylinder turbocharged engine. In a regular TTRS, it produces 400 horsepower and 480 newton meters of torque. In this Iconic Edition, it produces exactly the same. But those ingredients have always felt enough for me in the TTRS because this car weighs 1,475 kilos. And that means it has a claimed 0 to 62 time of 3.7 seconds, and we'll test that a bit later, and we'll go on to a top speed of 174 miles an hour. In terms of styling, well, we have this double splitter carbon fibre canards around here. We've got these aero flicks on the outside. All of the badging is in black except for this Quattro badge, which is in titanium. When we get around the side of the car, we've got these unique 20-inch 7-spoke alloys, and we've got these rather deep and aggressive looking side skirts and small little details like the Iconic Edition here on this rear section of glass, which I think looks really good and is colour coded to the Nardo grey bodywork. By the way, the only colour option on this car is Nardo grey, so all 100 of them will be Nardo grey, which makes sense because when I think of Nardo grey, I think of Audi RS. When we get around the back of the car, the black badging continues. We have some fake vents just for good measure, and these side spats here that sit behind the rear wheels, I'm guessing they're more style than function, a carbon fibre diffuser, and of course this massive swan neck wing. Now, Audi said in the briefing that this car was extensively tested in the wind tunnel, but I didn't manage to get any downforce figures, but it does look like it's very similar to the wing that's on the back of the R8 GT, and that car produces a fair amount of downforce at higher speeds. This wing is also handy for packed lunches. Audi gave me that when I left the hotel this morning, which is very nice of them, and once I turn the camera off, I might lay it out over the wing and enjoy it in this sunshine. I've always loved a TT cabin, first generation, second generation, and especially this latest third generation. I say latest, this third gen has been around for about 8 years now, but it hasn't dated because it's simple, and simplicity doesn't tend to date too much. I love all of the climate controls within the vents, so you can play around with them. Everything feels really expensive. My seat heating is also activated inside this outer vent. Not a touch screen in sight, and everything I need is in the gorgeous virtual cockpit in front of me. In terms of extra styling cues for the Iconic Edition, well, you can see that the seats have got embroidery in them, telling you once again that it's Iconic Edition. We've got contrasting yellow stitching and honeycomb on the seats and on the doors and above the instrument cluster. All nice little touches. And on top of the gear knob, I've got 000 out of 100. I'm guessing that the final production cars will all be numbered, so you know, number 16 out of 100, which once again is a nice little touch. We have this Alcantara clad steering wheel with a yellow strip at the 12 o'clock, and this also has some yellow stitching to match up with everything else in the cabin. But I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more, considering this car's price, like an Alcantara headlining. These door cards could have maybe been covered in leather or something a little bit more special than what you'd get in your regular base TT. Anyway, let's get this out on the road. First thing to do is test out this car's claimed acceleration figures. Audi say it will do the 0 to 62 sprint in just 3.7 seconds, which is 1/10 of a second quicker than the current RS3. My race box is ready. I've got nowhere to put my phone, so I'm going to have it down here. You can see that's ready to go there. All of the traction control devices are switched off. My left foot is hard down on the brake. Putting it into sports automatic, we're in dynamic. Right foot on the floor. Here we go. And there we go. 3.28 seconds, which is about exactly the same time that I've had out of the current RS3 and the RS3 Performance Edition, which is no surprise at all because they all use the same running gear, same power, and they're similar weights. But that's pretty quick. It's definitely quick enough for your TT. In terms of driving position, it feels like a familiar modern day Volkswagen Audi group car, so it's not too bad. You guessed it, I wish I was sitting a little bit lower, but I would probably be unlikely to track this car, and therefore it's not too bad. Just like the R8 GT I tested yesterday, visibility on the whole is good, but rear vision with that wing isn't perfect. Talking about that wing that's sitting on top of that boot lid, well, although the TT is a fairly compact car, and obviously it's pretty much a two-seater, although they call it a 2+2, but those rear seats are tighter than a 911. They're really just extra luggage space. If you fold them down, you've got a massive area to put loads of luggage, so this would be a fantastic road trip car, the TT in general. And I've seen people get 2 bikes in the back, obviously taking wheels etc. off, and that's really handy as we go past a few road bikes. So it is a practical car, albeit really a 2-seater practical car. As we get some nice twisties, unfortunately these seats aren't doing the best of jobs in terms of holding me in position. Audi's very latest RS bucket seats are miles better, and obviously seats like Porsche's carbon buckets or BMW's M3 and M4 carbon bucket options are a country mile ahead of these. But once again, I've got quite a big and lanky torso, and it just doesn't seem to sit or fit in these seats very well. I'm sure the smaller adult would probably suit these seats better, because my head is probably 4 or 5 inches above the headrest, which wouldn't be ideal in terms of safety. But yeah, I'm just a bit disappointed by the seats, but I suppose because the car is 8 years old now, it's too late down the lifeline to change the seats. I'm guessing that the new carbon buckets or RS buckets won't fit this particular chassis, and that is a shame, because seeing a pair of those in this car would be epic. TTRS, just like the RS3, has always been dominated by that beautiful 5-pipe, really is impressive. Even in today's age where it has OPF filters and obviously massive restrictions on maximum volume, etc., but you can still hear plenty of organic induction and exhaust sound, and it sounds good in here and it sounds good on the outside. In terms of what the performance feels like, well, in the intro I said it's always felt fast enough, and genuinely this car feels fast enough. And although the torque figure is actually down 20 Newton meters compared to the current RS3, not sure why that is, it feels like it's actually got more torque, and the reason for that is it is lighter. Remember, it's 1475, which in today's world is really not too bad, and I think that's why this car feels like it has more power and torque than it says it does on paper. But there's plenty available all the time. The 7-speed S-tronic gearbox does a good enough job. It doesn't feel as quick or snappy as the latest version I tried in an RS3 Performance Edition yesterday. The gear shifts in that seem really quick. This one seems a little bit slower, but maybe I'm imagining that. Now, unfortunately, I haven't driven a regular TTRS for a couple of years now, so in terms of muscle memory on that car, I'd be lying if I said I remember exactly how it feels. But if I was to use that tiny bit of knowledge that I have somewhere in my big head, I wouldn't say that this feels any better or any more dynamic. And that's not a bad thing, because the TTRS, as far as I'm concerned, this 3rd generation, feels really good. I wouldn't call it an out-and-out driver's car, but along a road like this, it's actually really good fun. But I was hoping that this iconic edition was gonna inject a bit more excitement, maybe sharpen it up a little bit more dynamically, but it just doesn't feel any different. The front end's a little bit soft, and actually compared to the current RS3 or the RS3 Performance Edition that I was in yesterday for a couple of hours, it doesn't feel as good as that car, and that's a shame, because the TT always used to feel a little bit better than the equivalent A3, S3, RS3, but I think this particular one has fallen behind. It doesn't have the trick torque rear diff that the RS3 has either, so it's not as agile in the corners, doesn't want to rotate under throttle as much, doesn't understeer badly like the earlier generations when you really start pushing it, but it's just not dynamically brilliant. I don't get out of this car going, wow, that was incredible. I get out of it going, oh, it was nice, it sounds good, it's kind of done everything really well, but just not as exciting as some of Audi's very recent RS models, like the RS3 and the RS4 competition. Let's just push it a little bit along this road. I don't know it, there's cyclists around and stuff, so I'm not going to go too fast. Nice, it gave me second then. Pulls hard, sounds so good, sounds so good. Brakes are pretty good, they're not carbon ceramic. You'd hope they would be 87.5 grand, but they do a good enough job. I think this particular car has Bridgestones on it. It's a shame that Audi didn't put PS4S's on it, or even Cup 2s, as it's such a sort of special model, because I think that would have sharpened it up automatically, just like it did with the 2nd generation R8 and a few other models of theirs. Turning is good, but it's a bit soft, like I said earlier on. Initial turning's nice, and then it seems to lean a little bit, almost like it is nose heavy, typical sort of old school Audi if you like, but then mid corner it balances out, and corner exit it's an absolute rocket ship. It really is. once you got the car turned and you can see the road straighten out, you put your foot down, it just fires you down the road. And of course it would do that come rain or shine because of its quattro all-wheel drive system. So dynamically it's good, but once again, it doesn't excite me massively. What's my conclusion on this TTRS Iconic Edition? Well, as you can probably tell, I'm not massively blown away by it. It's still a good car, and you'd expect that because the base TTRS is a good car. But at £87,650, it's just too expensive. The incoming M2 G87 is £61,500, and people say that's too expensive. That's 26 grand less than this, and the M2 has an extra 60 horsepower and is a brand new model, whereas this is obviously based on an 8-year-old car and underpinnings, etc. So I really don't know where they've got their pricing from, especially when you consider that a base model TTRS with essentially the same underpinnings, same engine, same output, same sort of performance, that retails at 58 grand. That's £29,000 less than this. It's just madness. And even a base model 992 911, well, that's about the same sort of price. And if it was my money and I wanted a 2+2, it would definitely go on the 911. And I am sorry to say that because I do really like the TT and the TTRS, but I just think this particular one, priced how it is just way too high. So I think the only sort of people that are going to buy one of these are Audi collectors or people that are absolutely obsessed with the TT and have got fat bank accounts, because yeah, at almost 90 grand, it's just a bit too expensive. But massive thanks to Audi for inviting me out here. I've had lots of fun over the past couple of days. Their R8 GT is an epic machine, and that is worth every single penny, as is their RS3 Performance Edition. Brilliant piece of kit. It's just a shame that this, although it's not a bad car, it just kind of lacks what I was expecting. It lacks that extra excitement and that extra sort of driver involvement. Guys, thanks for watching. As always, I will see you at another video very soon. Cheers. Sakes! That was close. That was close. Thankfully, I was going so slow. How did he not see me?